Welcome everybody, welcome to the channel. New faces, old faces, it doesn't matter, anything in between, welcome. I'm pleased to have you all on board. Now, you've seen the thumbnail, you've probably seen the title, and you want to see what this paint is that I am demoing today. Now, just quick bit of a background on this. The Painting and Decorating show in November 2023. I go round and I try and interview, I try and speak to traders, I try and speak to people in the trade about their products, whatever they've got on offer at the trade show. Bradite were one of the stands that actually refused to talk to me. And I don't want to say it as refused as in, no, we're not. They were reluctant to talk to me through one reason or another, which I thought was quite interesting because there's a lot of other paint manufacturers there that were more than willing to speak to me to promote their product. Clearly, they didn't want to promote their product, did they? Who knows? But off the back of that, I didn't get a sample can, I didn't get a free bag, I didn't get any pens, didn't get any can openers, because I went on to another stand. But time has moved on. I don't hold grudges. And I'm at the point now that I have purchased this from my local brewer's store, because when I was in there, I saw it on the side and thought, I've got to do a video on this. It's time's ticking by and we need to talk about this product. Now, brewers in Nottingham, it's not been given to me. It's not been like supplied that way. This isn't a sponsored video. It's not funded by anybody. I've purchased this. But reading the can, and I'm going to read the can to you, I'm going to read the blurb. Reading the can, I don't think we need any other paint. I think this is the paint that is one can of paint will do everything. Seriously, this one can will do everything. Now, I'm going to say to you, move away Zinsser All Coat, move away Bedeck MSP, Bedeck MSP, because this is, I don't even want to say the new kid on the block, because it's not a new kid on the block. It's a new kid for me trying it. This paint will do everything. And I'm going to put the can down, I'm going to put my glass on, I'm going to read the spec off the actual Bradite website. So this one can, it's water-based. Clearly it's water-based. It's touch dry in 30 minutes and it's recoatable in an hour, which is great. I've gone for the eggshell finish, which they say is roughly about a 25% sheen level. You can get it in a matte finish, and that is supposedly 4 to 8% sheen level. So there's a big difference between a matte finish and an eggshell finish. So I've gone for the eggshell and we'll see what it's like. Right, I'll read it to you. If I stumble over any words, we'll see what we can do and correct ourselves. Right, one can is a single pack, quick drying, low odor, water thinned primer and finish coat with excellent adhesion, stain blocking and anti-corrosive properties. So yeah, you know what that means. It's not going to rust, hopefully. One can provides protection to many substrates, including interior and exterior joinery, metals, building plastics, and cementitious, monsieur, surfaces. So cement-based, I think. One can blocks and locks stains, hides troublesome knots and resinous bleed on hardwoods, and locks in awkward water stains. I'd like to see whether it actually does what it says on the side of the can on that one when it mentions about resinous bleed, locks in knots, because we all really know that the only things that can stop knots, there's three main things other than the new hybrid sorts of knot blockers. Shellac-based knotting, aluminium leafing primer, gold leaf. They're the three things that stop knots. Now, I know that there's new paints on the market that can claim to stop knots, which are water-based, but there'll be something in there, won't they? A bit like this, there'll be something in there that stops knots. That, by the by, we want something that stops knots. Right, the other thing I just want to mention is hardwoods. Some people are mentioning to me, and I've had the same instance, if you're painting hardwoods, you can sometimes get a little bit of an air bubble coming onto the surface because there's either moisture in the wood coming out, or the wood is giving off a gas once the sun is coming on it and actually producing something in that wood to try and escape. Now, if you're trapping that gas or moisture in by a paint, doesn't matter what paint it is, that's when you'll probably see little air bubbles coming up. Now, people are going to say to me, how do I stop it? I really struggle with it. Aluminium leafing primer is probably a primer for hardwoods if you're old school or a proper, let's say proper in inverted commas, decorated, if you were using aluminium leafing primer on hardwoods, that would normally stop anything like that. But it can still happen. It would be interesting to know whether anybody's tested it and seen whether this stops that sort of situation. We don't know. It's a long-term test, isn't it? Right, let's just move on. It just gives it a breakdown. All-purpose water-based primer and a finish in one can, which this is. Helps block and stop stains. And it said earlier, water stains. So fingers crossed. I'd always say always give 2 coats of anything over water stains. Anti-corrosive on all metals. No primer required. Again, like a self-explanatory MSP. Primer, undercoat, finish, all in one. Interior, exterior durability, brilliant. Sticks to all metals, wood and building plastics, fantastic. Tintable to full BS colour range and RAL colours, brilliant, we want that. Oh, and here we go. And there's 2 stock colours you can either get in black or white, and they'll be off the shelf, and hence why I've ended up with a white in eggshell. And I said 25% sheen level. If you go for a matte, it would be a 4 to 8% sheen level. So there we are. It's sounding quite good. There is more information on the website, application-wise, brush roller, and you can spray it. I've said about 30 minutes drying time and recoating an hour. You can get it in 1 litre, 2.5 litres and 5 litres. What else does it say? Oh, stains, water damage, smoke damage, tanning bleed, rust, nicotine stains. Do you know what? Is this the saviour of paints that does everything for us? We don't need another paint. The way this is reading, we don't need another paint, do we? Probably not. Interior, exterior substrates. Let's just quickly go through these. So it's suitable on plasterwork, plasterboard, hardwood, softwoods, tannalized timber, marine regular ply, aged degreased galvanized, new degreased galvanized, yeah. Concrete, aluminium, stainless steel, powder coated, PVCU windows, doors, etc. MDF. We've also got plastisol cladding, fiberglass, GRP, aged gloss paints, which is what people say about oil-based paints. What can I put over it? Always give it a sand down and you can coat up with something like this. Glass and ceramic tiles, Formica, melamine, commercial ceiling tiles. So just touching on the glass and ceramic tiles. Back in the day when I was at college, and I always go on about when I was at college because not everybody has been, the primer or the paint that you would use on plastic and tiles and glass was always gloss paint. Now, you wouldn't rub any of those down. You wouldn't rub down plastic and you wouldn't rub down your tiles and your glass. So your adhesion couldn't be mechanical, i.e. rubbing it down. It had to be specific. It had to be specific adhesion, which means it would be gripping by its own accord without you needing to sand it because you couldn't do. So this is doing everything that every other paint seems to want to do as a dedicated paint for future paints going over the top, if that makes sense. So it's not needing to be a we don't need a specialist primer, we don't need a specialist undercoat. This is doing everything all in one can. Hence why I think that's why they called it One Can. So there we are. I think we've covered everything. I've probably gone on a bit too much about what's on there, but I want to get all the information out to you. Right, but without going on anymore, I've got Doris the door. That was a grey door that I painted a while back. It's all been sanded down with a Merca. I'm going to get my brush out, which, you know, my brush of choice when we're sampling and testing paints out. It's the Heritage from Knorr. I try and use the same brush for all these paint sampling videos. And if you want to watch more about product testing and things, it's in that corner there. It's on my left shoulder on your right-hand side of the screen, up in the top corner. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the paint out. I'm going to start painting down. We'll have a quick conflab on what I feel like the paint's like, and then I will come back after about an hour, give it another coat, and we'll do a sum up of what we think the coverage stroke capacity is like, what the finish is like, how it applied, and would I use it again. Can't say fairer than that, can we? So let's get some paint out and see how we go. Right, so away we go. I've got a proper kettle out, working from one side of the kettle, you know all about that. Bed your brush in, just See, I'm just bedding my brush in so the tips of the bristles have got paint in it and the filament there is picking up paint. Don't worry too much if you don't bed it in enough, because you'll soon bed in more paint to your brush as you go in. Now, away we go. We're starting with the mouldings, then doing the panels. And so far, the first initial thought is this is quite a thinnish paint. It doesn't feel like it's thick and pulling. It feels it's got a bit of body to it. Don't forget, you can clearly see we're going over a grey. Am I expecting this to cover for one coat? Clearly not. It'd be interesting to see what we like for the second coat. But so far so good on that first panel. Let's bring it round. We are quite warm today in the UK, which makes a change. This is going off on me quite quickly. I'm just knocking off those fatty edges around that moulding. They will dry by the time I come to them. Now, that is starting to dry really quick. My door panel's not hot, it's just room temperature, and we're quite warm in this studio garage. Right, I'll do the next one and we'll see how we go, and I'll fast forward for you. But application wise, it's easy to apply. Don't overwork it. I'm finding that it is drying off on me as I put it on. This is going to be one of these paints that those that are really good with a roller will have banged it out and done the door by the time I've done 2 or 3 panels. But we're trying it, we're brushing it, we're keeping consistency. Just knock off that fatty edge again. We're not going to worry too much because it is the first coat. Opacity, we're not bad really over that dark grey, are we? No. Right, I'm going to crack on. I'm going to see you when I get back and it's all dry. Okay, we're one coat in. Now, probably 10-15 minutes since we started that. Application wise, it actually went on really nice. Let's just say a bit of a dream to apply. It wasn't overly thick. The viscosity of the paint's not particularly thick. It's a nice medium viscosity paint to actually apply. I did find we are warm. I had to get that on ASAP. There was no faffing about with it. There was no crossing it off horizontal, laying it off with crow's nest. Let's say that again. There was no crow's nest in it, then laying it off horizontal, then with the tips of the bristles for the length, like you would do a traditional oil-based eggshell or an oil-based satin or gloss, or even with some water-based paints that you've got a little bit more working time with it. This has literally had to be applied quickly, laid off. First initial viewing looks a little bit messy as a decorator's skill of applying paint, but I know that if you work that too much, you would be overplaying it, shall I say, overworking the paint, and you would get loads of brush marks as it's drying on you as you're trying to brush it out, and that's where it doesn't flow out evenly. I'm not worried. It's the first coat. I'm going to go and get that brush washed out. I've got some gardening to do. That's my other job, do gardening. I'm going to come back to that after about an hour or so. It won't take an hour to dry, and I would say that coating up time will be less than an hour with this sort of environment, but always go with just an hour plus before you second coat. But do you know what? So far, I'm liking that, because there's a paint that's a bit of an all-rounder that if you, let's take it, I've got rental properties. You know, if you want a quick turnaround on coating out the woodwork on rentals, or even at your own house, if you're a decorator at home, you know, times are the essence and you can't be faffing about when Mrs. B says, oh, can you get that done? If you can coat that up in a morning, i.e. drying time is going to be 30 minutes touch dry, an hour, it's actually dry and ready for coating up. How good's that? That's really good. Right, just one more I'm going to mention. I'm going to start now because we're getting quite moving on with testing paints out. I bought some short strips of laminate wood flooring. I'm going to get all my paints that I test going forward. You'll know when these sequence of paints have been done because I'll have these. As I try a paint out, I'm going to be coating up these laminate pieces of boarding. You see, it's just cheap stuff. I'm going to coat them up. There's a bit of a texture like a wood grain. All I've done to clean it down is just wipe it over with meth, just in case there's any waxy finger grease on it. Wiped it down with meths, taped it up, so this will be the first coat. I'll put a bit of tape over for a second coat, bit of tape over a third coat, that sort of situation of testing. And over a period of time, I'll let these all nicely dry, and I'll come back to them and we'll see what they're like as a bit of a scratch test with using your fingernail, and just see how they actually stand up to something that's like a laminate. You can see a bit of a laminate surface. It might work, it might not, but it gives me something to do. Hello, we're back. We're back after 2 coats. Now, we knew we were going to struggle over that dark grey. It's only a test really for the opacity to see how good the opacity of that actual white is. Now I've left that section there. If I bring that down, I left that section there just with the 1 coat, and I've gone over everything else with 2. Now I'm quite happy with how that's been for 2 coats. I wouldn't expect that to cover over that dark grey. Where I would expect that to cover is over your whites and your light creams and things like that. If you're doing a quick, as I said just a few seconds ago, minutes ago, if you're doing a turnover of a rental, if you've already got white, eggshell, white gloss, whether it be oil or water-based, a couple of coats of this, jobs are good and it should be done. I would expect that to be covering for 2, no problem whatsoever. So what I'm going to say is, so far I'm liking it. That sheen level, that 25% sheen level, it's got a nice sheen level to it without being flat. You can just see it there without it being flat. The application of the second coat on top of itself, of being the first coat, was a lot easier than actually going over that grey, which was a drier undercoat. So going over itself, the application is spot on. Opacity, yes, we know it's not going to cover over that grey. So I'm going to give that a 3rd coat. Let's see what it's like after 3, and then let's just do a bit of a round up and a sum up. But so far so good. Have we found a paint that is just the only can that you need? One can. Okay, I'm back. Now, the elephant in the room. What's it covered like? What's the opacity like? We were dark, weren't we? That 3rd coat, it's better. It's better. I'm not saying, gone quiet. There's grinning around these mouldings. On the flats, I can just see it grinning through. And when I mean grinning, I can just see a little bit of shadowing that you'd say opacity. It's not actually covered. There's no body to the paint. But as I said just a little bit earlier on, if you were going over a white, you won't be worrying about it. We were going over a dark colour. So let's put that aside. And I'll tell you that the sheen level, I love. The application, I love. The lack of smell, and I've wiped everything out. The lack of smell from that paint, I love as well. So when we say got to sniff the bristle, you can't smell anything. Nothing ammonia-y, nothing cellulose-y, nothing shellac-based, because this will stop knots. This paint, looking down it, I actually do like the sheen level. Is it brush marky? Now, this will be subjective when it comes down to application. If somebody was using microfiber rollers, you'd probably get a better even finish. You might even get it covering for 2. But brush wise, I can see a little bit of brush marking to it. Nothing I'd worry about. Don't panic about that. It's not giving thick troweling brush marks, making it look ropey. And when we talk about ropiness, it's mainly because the paint's thick and it dries a little bit too quick, and you can see the lines of the brush marks when you're laying off. Let's not worry about that. If you're a professional, you'd probably put a little bit of water to it, not that it needed it, to try and lose it. But as a DIY, as an amateur, if you were using this paint, you're not going to be looking at things like I'm looking at, or another professional painter and decorator will be looking at. But that said, my only negative on this is 3 coats over that darker grey was still a little bit questionable. But I'm a professional. Where will this paint come into its own? Let me tell you where this paint will be brilliant, particularly with the way it would be applied. Let me do this fade out. And we fade back in. Do you know, if I was using this, you know, if he was using the Graco Ultra Quick Shot, this is a great bit of kit. If you've not tried one of these, you want to buy one. Do you know what? This, with that in the right environment, you would be spraying 2 coats, and I would say 99.9% you will get that covering perfectly. You will have that lovely finish. You will get, I don't want to say it. Have we got the, I daren't say it, but is this the perfect paint? Is it a double P, perfect paint? If we sprayed this and it covers over a grey for 2 coats, fantastic. But with what this is giving me, or giving you, I think I've found the perfect paint. Argue the case, please. Please tell me below. Have you tried it? Where have you used it? What have you used it on? What did you think of the application? If I changed to a different style of brush, could you get that covering for 2? Maybe. 3's not covered. 4 would cover, wouldn't it? Hopefully. On that note, please watch the videos at the end. I've spoken enough about this. Very impressed with it. I'm a little bit disappointed Bradite didn't want to speak to me at the painting and decorating show last year. Let's just say how impressed I am with this one can. It is literally everything in the can you'd need. Do we need any other paint than this? Question of the day.